We are now going to hear from Sue Homewood, presenting on Buffer Rules 101. Sue has been employed by the North Carolina Division of Water Quality and Resources since 1996. She began her career in the central office and in 2004 relocated to the Winston-Salem Regional Office. Sue's primary responsibilities include all things stream, buffer, and wetland related, including determinations, permitting, compliance, response to complaints, and providing technical assistance to homeowners, developers, industry, government agencies, and North Carolina citizens. Sue has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and a Master's of Science in Environmental Engineering from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Good morning, everybody. I am just going to do a quick refresher for some or introduction for others. It's the very, very basics of the buffer rules. We could do a whole day of talks and get down into the weeds, but we just want to get everybody on the same page as we're going forward. So in North Carolina, we have 6 riparian buffer protection programs. They range from the Neuse and Tarpam, which are very large, to the Randleman and the teeny tiny Goose Creek, and they go from the coast to almost the mountains. The Catawba tries to peek into the mountains and the foothills. The purpose of the different buffer rules is different in each watershed. In the Neuse, Tarpam, and Catawba, the purpose of the buffer rules was set out to provide nutrient removal functions to protect estuaries and downstream lakes. Sometimes that gets misconstrued as they were developed to improve the function or the conditions of those features. It was more of a to stop the problem or to slow the process down. So hopefully they've been providing some additional protection so that our water quality stayed static or at least didn't decline as quickly. They were never thought to be the fix to some of our water quality problems in North Carolina. In Randleman Lake and Jordan Lake, those buffer rules are specific to protecting water supplies. Both of those lakes are water supplies for multiple municipalities. Randleman Lake, the buffer rules were put into place at the time the lake was being built. So the hope was that it would help that water quality from the start. And for Jordan Lake, it's once things got bad enough, they put in any kind of measures they could to, again, protect things from getting worse. Goose Creek is a little different. Those buffer rules were developed to sustain and recover a federally endangered Carolina heel splitter, which is a mussel species. And that's sort of why it's so small. That is the only area that, that needs to be protected for that endangered heel splitter. So buffer rules are implemented, the rules are delegated to the Division of Water Resources to develop and implement. In some watersheds, local governments may request delegation. So in Neuse and Tarpam and Catawba and Goose Creek, local governments can say, hey, we're already doing a lot of our planning and regulatory work through our ordinances, and we'll take the buffers and handle those. Jordan and Randleman are a little different. When those buffer rules were developed, it was mandated that the local governments be the authority to implement those buffer rules. There were some exceptions, and those are listed here: forestry, government projects, agriculture, and projects that might cross boundaries between different municipalities. So in those cases, the state, the Division of Water Resources, will implement the buffer rules and maintain jurisdiction. If you read the buffer rules, the term we use is the authority, and that's because it was complicated to write in the state or a local government. So we just used the phrase authority, and that's defined in the buffer rules as the entity who has been delegated or designated to implement the buffer rules. So for the buffer rules to apply in most of the 6 programs, the features have to be approximately shown on either the latest USGS topo map, and that's the one online. It has a national hydrologic data set in the maps that are available from USGS online, or the most recent published soil survey. Now this is different because the published soil surveys are the old books that people have from the counties. Some of them are as old as the early 1900s. Online is a web soil survey that does not have the same stream layers as the published soil survey. So you just have to be cautious if you are picking up using your computer to find all the maps. The the published soil surveys are all scanned in as PDFs. So you can still use the computer to find the right maps. Just make sure you're not going to the web soil survey because that won't give you the right information. There are some caveats in some of the buffer rules. In Randleman buffer rules, it's such a small watershed and it was so urban that they felt like even with the two maps combined, they were not capturing and protecting a good portion of the watershed. So there's a clause in there that says the buffer rules apply if site-specific evidence indicates there's a stream. So basically what that means is if you have a stream and you drain to Randleman, it's got buffers on it. In Catawba, the buffers only apply to the main stem Catawba River and the lakes from Lake James down. So that you don't need any maps. They're not in those rules. It doesn't reference these maps because it's just the main stem and the lakes. So once you figure out that a stream may show up on the map or in Randleman, it may be on the ground, the buffer rules apply to specific features, and that's perennial or intermittent streams. And those are determined based on a Division of Water Resources stream identification manual. You don't necessarily use those maps to determine if it's intermittent or perennial. They apply to lakes and reservoirs and ponds that are attached to streams, so ponds that are built by damming upstream, so a stream is feeding it or exiting the pond. It applies to the estuaries down in Neuse and Tarpam, and it applies to modified natural streams. So even if it's maybe not in the same location on the map, if you are sure that it was that stream that maybe has been moved to the edge of an ag field or moved to a roadside ditch to build a new road, it would still apply if you can identify that that's the stream that was on the maps.